We got the housekeeping out of the way. You guys, we get to hear from Lily Boyles today. And as you can see, she's going to talk to us about Martha and Mary, kind of in honoring of Women's History Month. And we're not afraid of things like DEI around here, so we'll have some of that. You can see in the very short time, part of the illustrious career of this beautiful woman, ordained in Unity Worldwide in 22, currently pursuing her clinical pastoral education at KU Health, and then expected to graduate very soon. And then intends to be a board certified chaplain. And so, how about that? Let's have a song. What do you have for us, Lily?
What do I have for you? What do I have for you? Good morning. Good morning. I, what I love about being back here is that for some familiar faces, you have seen me through many years of my own evolution, which is kind of cool to be able to revisit a community who has seen different pieces of me, seen different expressions of me. And so today is just another one in that book of our relationship together. And so I am just so glad to be back here. This morning, I was talking with Mark before we got started about when do you think the last time you were here was? I was thinking maybe a year and a half. I don't totally know, but since I've been back, I've gotten married. I've moved back to Kansas City. I've shifted into what feels like the truest form of my calling of ministry, which is chaplaincy. And so I get to do that. And so the question that I get, the elevator pitch that I am getting down is, Lily, what in the world is chaplaincy? Because some people might know or have an experience of a chaplain. Oftentimes, this comes in the form of a chaplain in a hospital in a medical setting. And that is where I'm doing my training right now. But for me, being a chaplain is doing exactly what that David Roth song said. I will meet you where you are, and we will just be in it together, being able to honor the hard and the holy that is part of this life. And so that is what I feel like is in my energy, in my growth right now, is being able to shift out of this duality of good and bad and right and wrong and things that might feel like opposites, and to just say, it is. And what does that mean? And how does that impact me? And what is mine to do? And so that's one of the pieces that I want to offer us today, knowing that it is March, it is Women's History Month. This is something that I have been doing in other spaces of being able to bring back in stories of women in the Bible and taking it through a different lens. And so, what's so interesting in thinking about my evolution is my first term homiletics class in seminary. I did a talk on Martha and Mary. And so when I was going through because I had said, "Oh, I've done a talk similar on Martha and Mary. When was that?" Turns out it was when I was a fresh Unity student in seminary. And so I watched that back. And what an opportunity for Grace Lilly 4 years ago, who was just new, a little rough. All of these thoughts was definitely in a binary of saying, well, she was right and she was wrong. And so I love that I get to revisit this in my own evolution and offer you a moment to be able to say, huh, I've heard this story before, but I've never thought about it in that way. And so what I want to do is offer the story of Martha and Mary from the Bible. As all of my Bible instructors have ever told me, I will be bringing in historical context so we can understand what this might have meant that day and age. And then going through the process of unity, being able to look at it metaphysically through the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary of what does this symbolize? What does this mean for us spiritually? And then taking it a step farther and shifting into the maieutic process of saying, this story, how does it relate to my story? How is this alive in my world? How is this called for me? So that is just a little laying of the ground of what I'm hoping that we can do today. And one of the pieces that was hard for me to come up with is a way that I can tell you a story about my day as a chaplain without going into all the minutia of patient care and medicine. But what I realized is I have days that I feel more like Martha and I feel more like Mary. And so, just to kind of give us a preview of what I'm talking about, Martha, the story that we will read, she is busy. She is doing. She is the one who is offering the hospitality to Jesus and his disciples that come into her home. And so for me, a Martha day is a day like I had yesterday. When I was on call at the hospital, the only chaplain on call on a Saturday in the hospital of 900 beds. If you can imagine, some days that means I am running start to finish because there is always someone more to care about. Yesterday, it was from about 10:30 to about 4:30 that I did not stop. I did not sit. I felt like I was constantly behind. I thought I missed things. I was doing, catching up, catching up, catching up. That felt like a Martha day for me, which is juxtaposed to my Friday, where I just got to be in seminar. I got to be with other students of chaplaincy, and we got to sit and we got to learn from each other. And I felt like I was able to take all of this in and learn what's important for me and how is that triggering pieces of me that are still coming up to be healed. And I was in that, but I didn't see a single patient on my Mary day. So what I have decided in my own work is I want to have Mary moments of stillness in a Martha day of busyness. So one of the pieces that to be able to go into this, we're going to go into the story. As a seminary student, and even before that, I have had a glorious collection of Bibles of different translations, different meanings to be able to compare. But the one that I'm pulling from today is actually one of my new favorites, and it's called the Inclusive Bible. So if there are people who have shifted out of the masculine names for the divine, and have kind of maybe prickled when God is only a he, some of that language has been shifted here to be able to have this be a little more neutral, a little more expansive, a little less genderless of the divine, which we know takes on all things and is all energy. So we come from the Inclusive Bible to the story of Martha and Mary, which is from Luke chapter 10, verse 38 through 42. And it reads, as they traveled, Jesus entered a village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary who was seated at Jesus' feet and listened to his words. Martha, who was busy with all of the details of hospitality, came to Jesus and said, Rabbi, don't you care that my sister has left me alone to do all of the household tasks? Tell her to help me. Jesus replied, Martha, Martha, you're anxious and upset about so many things, but only a few things are necessary. Really, only one. Mary has chosen the better part, and she won't be deprived of it. So thinking about this from our historical context, there's a few things that I think are pretty cool about this story. Jesus came into Martha's home. Martha appears to be the eldest of the family. This is Martha and Mary, whose brother was also Lazarus, who Jesus raised from the dead. But Martha appears to be the head sibling, the eldest, and own her household. It was quite rare in the day that women would be managing their own affairs as the head of the household, and especially inviting a man like Jesus, who was unmarried, we believe, at that time into her home. So welcoming Jesus and having his entourage come into her house implied the fullest form of hospitality and pushed the cultural narrative of the traditional roles of a woman who typically would not be able to own a household and who would not be typically seen with unmarried men without either her husband or her brother. So that's one of the coolest things, to just see that already culturally, Martha is pushing this narrative of a woman with means and power of the day. In the first century, only men would have been disciples, which often would be at the feet of a rabbi. Some people would take chairs, but disciples would sit at a rabbi's feet. So, just in the positioning of Mary, this was unique. Sitting at the feet of a rabbi is the posture of humility and a way for those to declare that those around him would be learning from the rabbi, that that was the position of learning. This is what made Mary's actions so shocking to Martha and probably the men around them. It was going against cultural norms of the day. Yet Jesus seems to receive her. And that's not surprising. We know from Jesus' story that there are disciples that were women and even apostles in the verbiage. This was an astounding feature of Jesus' ministry that was different than anything else happening. That not only were women included, but there is a place for women at his feet in the learning. This is why, according to Luke's record, Jesus said, Mary has made the right choice, and this will not be taken from her. So the social norms of the day will not push Mary back into a box that does not serve her, but that her ministry, her learning, her being at the feet is okay and welcome. That from all of my reading, Jesus was pushing the cultural envelope, but he also cultivated community that was doing that as well. Knowing that in first century Jewish world, all of this would be out of the norm at the level potentially of a soap opera. So looking at what Jesus might have seen, if I'm looking at it from Jesus, Jesus is telling the reader who has the eyes to see that Martha and Mary are sisters. They stand for two good ways of being, and that is the femininity in all of us. That sometimes this has been taken into just saying a commentary on priorities and about women's work and about women slowing down. But in this world, from what we know from unity, that there is femininity and masculinity in all of us. And so this is two representations of being serving and being still. So there is not a negation of either one of them. There is just a difference. And so much of that in my work right now is just being able to say neither one of these are good or bad. It's just different. And that is what's good. So being able to have this example, Jesus was the visitor in the house. Jesus said yes. Jesus held space for all of this, knowing that the truest form of the Christ presence within us also has the potential to hold space for all of this expression within each one of us. In the story, Jesus does not rebuke Martha. He's actually quite gentle with her, it seems. He does not say anything to disparage her, saying that she's wrong, that she's doing anything wrong. He just simply points out very gently that she might be becoming upset and over anxious about things. There are 7 characters in the Bible that have their name mentioned twice by Jesus in a row. And Martha's the only woman. So that Martha, Martha, you are anxious, shows a level of Jesus interacting with this piece. From what I know about caring for patients, when I come into a room and I use your name, there is a greater connection within us to be able to say, hi, Jeff, I'm Lily. How's it been? That's a personal level of connection that Jesus and Martha probably already had. But that what I hope would have been a tender way of Jesus saying, Martha, Martha, you are getting over anxious and upset. Pointing out that this is a piece of an experience, not the truth of who she is. He does not name what might be the things that are getting her to that point. He might imply what it is, but that's for each soul to know at their own time. That there is some need for balance that is called to in this space. Because if we were all Mary, sitting at the feet of Jesus, not helping, not doing, not responding, I don't know how much the world would move. Just like we would all lose opportunities to have those merry moments if all we're doing, especially in this 21st century, is moving, 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 busy, busy, busy. One of the pieces for me in this story is realizing who who of these characters do I relate to most? Let me tell you, it's Martha. I've always thought Martha had a bad rap in this. I am a busybody. I am a busy bee. I serve through doing, working in my first few churches as the volunteer and outreach coordinator. That's all I did was figure out how can we be the hands and feet of God in this world through service, through doing. Nothing propels me more than people coming over to my house to deep clean and get floorboards scrubbed down. And so I relate to Martha in that way. And I relate to Martha in sometimes having other people call me into understanding that I might be missing things because of my busyness. I don't know if that's an experience other people have had, but I think the anxiousness of our souls sometimes misses the opportunity to be still and connect in with the divine. That need for balance that we are and can be both in service, moving, and both still in our reverence. Those are pieces. That's the dance. That feels like my work. And what has been so incredibly beautiful in chaplaincy is I get to do this every single day. Because the beauty of how my workday comes together is moment by moment. That I might come in on a day and I will print out a patient list of these are the patients I hope to see today. And I just have a name and a room. I know nothing about them. And my favorite days as a chaplain is when I am in the flow where I have found the balance of doing the work of Martha, the service of Martha, and getting to have those moments of Mary with people. I had a day a few weeks ago where it just felt like everything was easy. Have you ever had one of those days where it's just like there are green lights? You like someone paid for my coffee in the cafe and I got to have the most gloriously expansive, heart-opening visits with people. None of which were on my patient list that I printed out at the beginning of the day. That I had set a plan, I was ready for the busyness, but it had been moments that I had taken extra time in the morning. I had gotten settled in my soul. One of my processes every day is I get to walk outside versus going through the kind of winding hallways of the hospital. So I felt connected in the world around me. And before my first visit, I took that centering breath, connecting in with spirit. And I had the most beautiful day. You know what? I met someone who knew my mom in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who was a patient. I went out, I was charting, and a nurse said, "Hey, I think these folks might need a visit." And I said, "Sure." And I got to have a really honest, hard conversation about feeling like you're not ready to die, but not feeling like your body can do this much longer. And that felt hard and holy. And I did good work there. And I was walking down the hall and I saw a nurse who had just come back from maternity leave and she was just sobbing because she missed her baby. And so I just got to be in a moment of tender love with her to be able to say, and that's okay. And look at baby pictures. That it was just this moment where none of this was planned, but all of it felt ordained because it was all easy. If I had said, "Oh, sorry, can't do that. Got to go to something else. Oh, nope, actually, they're not on my list. I'm going to go and see this one." I think I would have missed all of this. I think I would have missed all of that God moving so seamlessly in and through and as me. And that is one of those moments that calls me into knowing that it's my job and my responsibility to notice Where is my mind? Where is my rush? And am I taking enough time to be still in it all? One of the pieces looking from the historical context of how potentially radical this was, not only for the role of Martha and Mary, but also of what it meant to be a female disciple allowed at the feet. We can take this one step further of being able to say from the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, which is, man, let me tell you, this thing, we have been through a lot of talks together, but it's also online at truthunity.net. And so when we look at it, metaphysically, this story, Martha and Mary represent the outer and the inner activities of love in the soul, welcoming and entertaining the Christ principle and its manifestation. Martha and Mary represent the outer and the inner activities of love in the soul, welcoming and entertaining Christ's principles and its manifestation. So the work outside and the energy inside, as Martha and Mary, combined within all of us, are part of the piece to have the Christ principle, the Christ light within all of us, manifest. Martha represents the outer activity of love, and Mary the inner consciousness that is lovingly receptive within each of us. Both of these things are needed and vital for us. Neither one is better. Lily, 4 years ago, in her talk for homiletics, almost pitted these sisters against each other as a right and wrong. Thank goodness for my evolution to say, neither of them are wrong. Both of them are different. And how are they both in me? And how do I show up in both of this in the world? Both of these states of consciousness are necessary. There is a caution at times that there should be a carefulness in relying on the excess and outer expression of service to not be something that is used as a deterrent to look at the inner. A joke I often say as a chaplain is, I am so glad I can deal with other people's stuff today because I wasn't quite ready to look at my stuff today. And when I said that to my supervisor, he said, ooh, maybe you should see a patient today. Maybe you should sit with that inner stuff today. And you know what? That's what I did. Because the beauty of chaplaincy, of what I have learned, is that there are people's stories that are all connected with my story. That there is an interconnectedness in all of us to be able to say, this experience, this emotion, this idea that you have, how is that similar to mine? How is that different than mine? How is that new to me? And how do we work within living together? The phrase of my childhood unity is co-creating a world that works for all. Part of that is knowing what is happening on the internal and how is that manifesting in the external. Knowing that really the only things that we have dominion over is our internal and ourself. Being able to have this dance, Martha and Mary are pieces of us. And so in your own story, I invite you to think about, is there a Martha tendency for you? Is there a Mary tendency for you? Which one do you naturally lead with a little more? And maybe why? Not making anything wrong, but just making it true and known. The consciousness of the inner and the work of the outer, all of this is necessary for us to not only take a step into this version of reality that we are making and co-creating with each other, but also always underpinned with our divinity and our humanity. That's that fifth unity principle of putting all of this into action that I think is such a beautiful responsibility to be able to say, oh, I might be wanting to serve others, but have I cared for myself? Oh, I might be just sinking into books and sinking into things that feel comfortable because I don't want to engage with the outer world. Not making anything wrong, just noticing. There is a piece of spirituality that I think sometimes gets forgotten about. And it is the power of our mind. That sometimes we so want to say, oh, I'll just leave the monkey mind and I'll just sink into the heart. But this is all a dance. What does it mean? How does it work together? How am I both Martha and Mary? How can I feel like I might be having a Martha day and still find Mary moments? How can I realize maybe I'm trying to be so spiritual like Mary sitting at Jesus's feet, but I haven't actually put any of this into work yet and brought it out into the world. Each one of us is on our own path. The beauty of a community like this that we get to have together is that our paths are intertwining. And one of the beautiful things about this community that I have seen is there is so much activity ignited to be able to say, these are your gifts. These are my gifts. Let's bring them forward to make it better for each other. And so with Martha and Mary as our kind of underpin of thinking about this inner and outer service and stillness, levels of consciousness, I want us to take a moment to be able to bring that into meditation. And so that's kind of where we're going to energetically shift right now. But I first want to take a moment for you to just get comfortable in your space if you need to move wherever your body feels best. And I just want you to notice the rhythm of your breathing. Breathing in and breathing out. If it feels comfortable for you to close your eyes and get centered in that way, I invite you to do so. And so just take a moment to get centered into your body, starting at the head and just noticing down to the shoulders, down through your arms, moving through your chest, down to your hips, down through the knees and through the feet. Just noticing, becoming aware of your body. Now I invite you to say, thank you, body. Knowing that this body has brought you this far. And now I invite you to move into your head, your mind. If there's any thoughts that might be present there, we can just put them on pause right now. Coming back to the breath if we need to. Knowing that this mind is both human and divine, connected into a source and also connected into the world. So I invite you to take a moment to say, thank you, mind. Surrounding that with appreciation. Now I invite you to shift your attention into your heart. If there is anything that feels heavy on your heart, I invite you to just notice it. Let it be present right now. The heart is the connector, the heart that continues to show up with love. Take a moment to just say, thank you, heart. And in this connection of appreciation of the mind, body, and spirit, I just invite you to be still. I invite you to think about anyone in your community, anyone in your family or friends or the world who you would like to invite into this space. Maybe sending them some love or some peace, acknowledging the interconnectedness of us all. And finally, I'd like you to just bring to mind a picture of the world. This world that shows us how truly interconnected we are, not with each other, but with all living beings. And just take a moment to use our gifts as fully spiritual, to just bless this world in this moment. And when you're ready, I invite you to come back into your body, wiggling your toes, maybe shrugging your shoulders. If you closed your outer eyes, I invite you to open them when you're ready and come back to this space and this time, surrounded by these people. What a absolute pleasure and gift it is to be with you all this morning. So thank you for letting me share with you and be with you. It is the greatest pleasure of my life.
It's really nice of you to say. And we are happy to have had you. Thank you.